Sitting in the coffee shop, I looked at the somewhat weary Wei Chuan across from me and asked, "Are we still getting married?" With red eyes, Wei Chuan choked up a bit and said to me, "I will definitely marry you." As I gazed at the still handsome Wei Chuan before me, my thoughts drifted back to 8 years ago. Wei Chuan and I met at the university's New Year's Eve party. Wei Chuan said he was attracted to me when I was holding the microphone on the stage. After the party, Wei Chuan began a fervent pursuit of me. In reality, I never lacked suitors. However, among the many pursuers, Wei Chuan was the most special. Because Wei Chuan didn't have much money. He had 6 siblings in his family. To support Wei Chuan's college education, his elder sisters had married, and his younger sister had dropped out of school to work. Additionally, he had 2 twin brothers still in school. Wei Chuan worked diligently while facing these challenging circumstances. In such difficult situations, to pursue me, Wei Chuan would even skip breakfast but buy soy milk and fried dough sticks for me. Although my roommate teased, even my nephew in kindergarten knows to bring an egg when buying breakfast for a girl. But in my heart, it felt sweet. In the movie Beneficiary, Yu Miao Miao naively believed that a man willing to spend 99 out of $100 on her was a good man, true love. So, she married the man who planned to kill her. However, Wei Chuan was different. With only $5 in his pocket, he would rather go hungry himself than let me go without soy milk and fried dough sticks. And both Wei Chuan and I were academic achievers, with bright prospects ahead. So, after graduating from college, I brought Wei Chuan home and told my parents I wanted to get married. But they flatly refused in unison. Wei Chuan, however, didn't get angry because of my parents' rejection. Instead, he held my hand and gently comforted me, saying, "Babe, listen to your aunt and uncle. They are doing it for your own good." Reluctant to part with Wei Chuan, I cried in his arms. After we broke up, I stayed at home, crying day in and day out. My parents, seeing my distress, reconsidered and agreed to me being with Wei Chuan, with the condition that we stabilize our careers first. After discussing with Wei Chuan, he thought taking the civil service exam would be more stable. To ensure he could focus on studying, I, through the introduction of a high school classmate, joined a real estate agency and became a salesperson. My parents were disappointed in me. They always thought that, being a graduate of a prestigious university, I should find a decent job. But I understood that my family's financial situation was not great. Wei Chuan's exam preparation meant no income, and he was hesitant to ask for money from his family. Buying a house was the quickest way to make money. When I became a supervisor with the highest performance, Wei Chuan also successfully passed the civil service exam. My parents, seeing the return on my efforts, proposed meeting Wei Chuan's parents to discuss the wedding. Considering Wei's family situation, my parents promised to give us the house as our marital home. This moved my future mother-in-law, and with tears in her eyes, she said, "After Belle enters our family, I will treat her like my own daughter." She also put a somewhat lackluster silver bracelet on my wrist, promising a dowry of 66,000 yuan. After this dinner, Wei Chuan and I were officially engaged. Because Wei Chuan was assigned to work abroad for 3 years, departing in a month, with a promotion and salary increase upon his return. Both sets of parents felt that planning a wedding now would be too rushed, so they scheduled it for 3 years later. Although I was reluctant to be in a long-distance relationship with Wei Chuan, he reassured me that the bracelet was the only piece of jewelry his mother received from his father when they got married. Now, his mother had given the silver bracelet to me, a sign of her strong approval. I listened, feeling joyous in my heart. After Wei Chuan left, we maintained our relationship through our phones. Wei Chuan provided me with a strong sense of security. He was responsive and reliable in everything, with clear explanations for all matters. Even during holidays, he stuck with me 24/7. To ease Wei Chuan's burden, his twin brothers successfully entered prestigious universities. As their soon-to-be sister-in-law, I often provided them with financial support. When Wei Chuan found out, he was deeply moved, shedding tears and praising his good fortune to have me. My mother-in-law always praised my thoughtfulness to Wei Chuan's relatives. In the second year of Wei Chuan's overseas assignment, my mother-in-law had an accident during a trip due to an overloaded vehicle, breaking her leg. It was me who transferred her from the rural hospital to one closer to the city for treatment. Afraid of spending money, my mother-in-law didn't let my father-in-law and 3 daughters accompany her. I had to work during the day and stay with her at night. Fortunately, my mom was retired and could help during the day. In the end, both my mom and I lost a lot of weight when my mother-in-law was discharged from the hospital. However, I felt uneasy. Because, in taking such care of my mother-in-law, her behavior seemed as if it was expected of us. My mom advised me, "Your mother-in-law might not be good at expressing herself, don't overthink it." In the blink of an eye, 3 years passed, and Wei Chuan finished his overseas assignment and returned. I thought I would soon be a joyful bride. But my in-laws and Wei Chuan didn't mention anything about the wedding. Wei Chuan's attitude towards me also changed, not as warm as before, and even a bit indifferent. My parents were worried because I'm a year older than Wei Chuan, and after the new year, I would be 29. A girl's youth is fleeting. So, my parents took the initiative to call my mother-in-law. When my mother-in-law answered, she made excuses, claiming to be busy and couldn't talk for long, then hung up. Later, when my parents called again, she simply didn't answer. Worried, my parents drove to Wei Chuan's home. Wei Chuan's home was in the mountains, with a difficult road. However, as soon as they entered the village, upon hearing that my parents were going to Wei's house, the villagers enthusiastically led the way. But when they arrived at Wei Chuan's home, the gate was tightly closed. Waiting for my in-laws to return, my parents learned from the villagers who guided them that since Wei Chuan passed the civil service exam and found a wife in the city, my mother-in-law had been quite arrogant in the village. He added that Wei Chuan had received a promotion and salary increase, and their leaders highly valued him, even wanting to make him an official son-in-law. As my parents didn't reveal their identity, only saying they came to Wei's house for something, my dad handed him a cigarette and teasingly asked, "Didn't Wei Chuan find a city wife now?" With the leaders appreciating him, "Isn't this bigamy?" He chuckled and said, "Wei's wife is quite clever." After Wei Chuan passed the exam, she complained that the city wife's job wasn't good, deliberately keeping her hanging. In these 3 years, anyone proposing to Wei Chuan had to break through the threshold of the Wei family. In Wei's wife's words, "It's looking for a better opportunity." My dad wanted to continue, but Wei Chuan and my mother-in-law, along with a stranger girl, came down from a car. Seeing my parents, Wei Chuan tensed up. However, my mother-in-law calmly handed a package to Wei Chuan and said, "Both of you take the things inside." Wei Chuan didn't speak to my parents and directly took the girl into the house. However, my mother-in-law lifted her chin arrogantly and said, "You promised a wedding house for my son, but it's still under your name. It shows a lack of sincerity. Now, my son can be an official, and your daughter is just a real estate agent, completely unworthy of my son. Now, my family's Wei Chuan is about to become the future son-in-law of their leaders. If you have time to come to my house, you might as well hurry up and find a new match for your daughter." My parents were furious, but they had never argued or had a heated confrontation with anyone in their entire lives. They could only hold back their anger and return home with a sullen mood. Knowing how deep my feelings were for Wei Chuan and understanding my years of dedication to him and his family, my parents, after telling me everything, said, "Whatever you decide, we respect your choice." I couldn't believe that Wei Chuan, whom I had loved for 8 years, would treat me like this. Moreover, when I received the call from my parents, my best friend was accompanying me in a bridal shop. During this time, I texted Wei Chuan to ask for his opinion, and he almost instantly replied. So, to preserve my feelings and 8 years of youth, I decided to have a serious talk with Wei Chuan. Knowing that I liked coffee, Wei Chuan chose to meet at my favorite coffee shop. I had many questions to ask Wei Chuan, but when I saw him, only 6 words remained in my mind: "Are we still getting married?" With red eyes, Wei Chuan choked up a bit and said to me, "I will definitely marry you." After saying that, he tried to hold my hand, but I avoided it. However, in my presence, Wei Chuan deleted the contact information of that girl and even bought a ring for me that afternoon. I believed Wei Chuan still loved me, so we continued preparing for the wedding. However, Wei Chuan started working overtime more frequently, and he moved back to the company's dormitory. Every time we met, Wei Chuan would be holding his phone, grinning foolishly. When I messaged him, he would always take a long time to reply, with brief responses like, "Working overtime" or "In a meeting." During this time, my parents, following the previously arranged plan, wanted to transfer the house to me and Wei Chuan. However, I refused. Wei Chuan, with some dissatisfaction, said to me, "Then where will we live after we get married?" I calmly replied, "In the bridal house my parents prepared." Wei Chuan, with a contorted expression, said, "That house is under your dad's name. If I move in like this, what's the difference between me and an official son-in-law?" I laughed and said, the house you lived in after passing the civil service exam was rented with my money. If we talk about being an official son-in-law, you've been one for a long time, a freeloading official son-in-law. Unable to argue with me, Wei Chuan brought his mother into the discussion. His mother roared over the phone, your parents' words don't count. Our Wei Chuan won't become an official son-in-law. I think this wedding shouldn't happen. Before his mother could finish speaking, I hung up the phone. Wei Chuan, full of anger, scolded me, Bear, why are you so rude? That's my mom, your elder. You should respect her. And now, with my current status, marrying you, a real estate agent who exposes herself, is being laughed at by others. Can't you quit your job for me, come home, and take care of me? I stared fiercely at Wei Chuan, suddenly realizing that he only cared about himself. Initially, Wei Chuan used his breakfast money to buy me soy milk and fried dough sticks. But all his full scholarship money went to support his family. During Wei Chuan's civil service exam preparation, I helped him repay his student loans. So, I smiled at the still handsome face of Wei Chuan and slapped him hard before leaving. 2 months later, I learned from Wei Chuan's former roommate, who used to complain about him, that Wei Chuan had married the daughter of his superior. At the wedding, my ex-mother-in-law was flaunting everywhere, proudly stating that the house and car were all provided by the bride's side. After sharing all this, she said to me, I told you back then that Wei Chuan wasn't good enough, but you didn't believe me. You've wasted so many years of your youth. I responded with a few laughs and then hung up the phone. From that moment on, I never heard any news about Wei Chuan again. Under my parents' arrangement, I went on a blind date with the son of my father's classmate and got married. However, during a prenatal checkup with my husband and my best friend in the hospital corridor, I accidentally saw my ex-mother-in-law holding Wei Chuan, crying and saying, I knew this child was a girl, but she insisted on giving birth. Now her uterus has been removed, and our family will be cut off. Wei Chuan impatiently scratched his head and roared, if it weren't for you forcing her to drink that secret potion for childbirth, would she have struggled with you, fallen down the stairs, and caused a premature birth? Turning around suddenly, Wei Chuan saw me and was suddenly stunned. However, I just touched my pregnant belly, smiled, and walked past Wei Chuan and his mother. My husband looked at Wei Chuan's expression and asked me, do you know him? I shook my head. My best friend supported me and, in a voice audible to Wei Chuan and his mother, said, there's an heir to the family throne, and it's not the end. It's dead in the early morning, okay. I patted my friend's hand, smiled, and nodded. Because, at that moment, I was completely relieved. No matter who married Wei Chuan, it was a doomed relationship. And I should be grateful for his current wife. If it weren't for her appearance, I might be the woman lying in the hospital bed, having my uterus removed.